What's up, everyone? I'm Will Endy. I'm here with Matthew Miller. We're going to be talking some Texas versus Michigan, the big game of the weekend, and in the big house. I'm here with Matthew Miller. Matthew, we're just excited for this game between two blue bloods. Obviously, Michigan doesn't look quite as strong, but it's just excited to see two teams that I know they face each other in that Rose Bowl. I believe it was a Rose Bowl right before that they won for the title. But besides that, I can't think of many other Michigan-Texas meetings. So just excited.
No, this is actually the first meeting between the two in the regular season ever. And I think it's crazy that two of the biggest or seven biggest brands in the history of college football are playing for the first time in the regular season. Yet another reason why we need a commissioner of the sport. But yeah, that was the Rose Bowl the year prior to playing USC and beating them in the national championship. And then when you have like an iconic saying by Vince Young saying, "We'll be back." And then we're back the next year and they beat USC. So I actually have a jersey from that game that I will be wearing on that call-in show tomorrow with the Michigan guys. So that's going to be fun.
So obviously Texas brings back a lot of the firepower that brought them to the playoff, as well as some other additions. Do you think Quinn Ewers has improved from last year? Like, do you see any noticeable improvements from him? Obviously, he had a great game against Bama and great season overall, but
yeah, just based off of the one game, I would say he's made slight improvements in his footwork. He climbed up in the pocket pretty well when he had to versus Colorado State. There were very few opportunities for him to do so. I expect more this weekend because Michigan does have a very good front. So we're going to have to see that more. But the one thing he still lacks to me is confidence. There's a combination of him reading the defense plus confidence. I had a commenter in one of my videos say, I think he has issues reading defenses. And I agree with that to a certain extent. But this play in the Colorado State game, he reads it well. He climbs the pocket. He sees Amari Niblack open. For whatever reason, he does not pull the trigger on it. And that led to a tip pass and interception because then he pulled it down and then tried to get rid of it. And that's what happened. And to me, it's just a confidence thing. If you went back and looked off the field when he got here at Texas, he was not a confident guy. I know he was built up to be this macho, big guy time recruit, but that's not who he is off the field. And he's gotten better with that. And I think that's translated onto the field as well. But I still think there's just a little bit missing. And people need to realize, too, he's still pretty young. He reclassified. So really, I know it's his third season starting at Texas and fourth season overall, but it's really his third year basically in college football because he didn't play his first year, barely got any experience. So I still expect some growth from him. But overall, yes, he's way better than when he stepped onto campus. And I think there's an argument to be made, especially if he dices up this Michigan defense or does well even versus Michigan defense, that he's the best quarterback in college football.
Yeah, the only guys I can really think of, I guess Dylan Gabriel, not really. I don't know. And then Carson Beck and Shedeur, I think, are the two guys you can really make arguments for.
I would completely agree with that. Right now, if I were ranking just based off what I've seen, I think Shedeur Sanders is probably the best quarterback in college football. He doesn't have much to work with other than Travis Hunter at Colorado, but I would go him. And then I think it's an argument between Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers. I'm not a Dylan Gabriel fan. He's been in college for 6 years. There's a reason for that. If he was really as good as people made him out to be, he'd be in the NFL.
So there's a whole bunch of running back injuries, but I mean, Texas, to me, Texas and Missouri are the two states that, I mean, they always produce good running backs. So that isn't a huge problem for Texas. What do you think of Jadon Blue and the other guys that could get carries for Texas?
Yeah, so going into the season, I had this opinion. This was before Cedric Baxter got hurt. I said Jaden Blue should have been the starter anyways. I think he's got a little bit more juice than Cedric Baxter. No offense to Cedric Baxter. Every time he touched the ball last year, he limped off the field. No matter what the case was, he always had a nagging injury. Is he supremely talented? Absolutely. He was the number one running back coming out of high school. But guess what? Jaden Blue, when he came out of high school, before he skipped his senior season, was ranked as the number one running back in his class. The only reason he fell, and I do not understand this, if a guy sits out a senior season in high school, they dropped him 4 spots. That doesn't make any sense to me, but they did that. So he's ended up being 4th or 5th, but he's a supremely talented guy. Then you have someone like Trey Wisner, who impressed on special teams last year, and that has made Sark take him seriously at the running back position. And he was he's done really well so far. He had a good game versus Colorado State. He's never going to be your number one guy. He's probably not even going to be your two guy, but he's a guy that deserves 5 to 7 carries a game or 8 to 10 touches a game because he's a pretty good receiver out of the backfield as well. And then the guy, honestly, that had the most juice, in my opinion, was Jarrett Gibson in the first game versus Colorado State. This is the guy who's a freshman. He was the 4th running back out of this class in high school from IMG Academy down in Florida, which just turns out number of college players, number of NFL players. And he had a really good game. He had 10 carries for 67 yards. So overall, a very impressive game for him. I think you're going to see him, and I made this prediction. I think he'll be our, in carries wise at least, he'll have our second most production because I don't think Trey Wisner, again, is that true number 2 back. So I think you'll see Jaden Blue get most of the reps. I think Jarrett Gibson going it later in the season, he'll get more reps than Trey Wisner. Now, in this game will be interesting. I think it will honestly be whoever can pass block the best because that Michigan defense is going to blitz you and you're going to need time in that pocket. So I think it depends who can pass the block the best between Trey Wisner and Jarrett Gibson, who ends up the second carries. Jaden Blue's the starter. He'll get the most amount of carries no matter what.
And for the receivers, obviously, Isaiah Bond and Silas Bolden are the 2 big transfer targets. Of course, Isaiah Bond, everyone remembers him from that insane catch in the Iron Bowl against Auburn. But do you think these guys are at all an improvement or not a slight drop-off from A.D. Mitchell and co. from last year?
So we don't have the top end talent that we had last year because I'm not going to argue that Xavier Worthy and A.D. Mitchell, we don't have 2 of those guys. We just don't. But if you're comparing room to room, like your top 8 guys in last year's room versus your top 8 guys in this year's room, I honestly think this room's deeper. I think there's an argument to be made, and I've made this argument. I think there's 5 or 6 guys in this room that are just as good as our third receiver last year, Jordan Whittington, and he's playing pretty well right now for the Los Angeles Rams. So overall, very talented room with a lot of depth and also a lot of speed. I think this is the fastest wide receiver room Sark has maybe ever had. You could argue the Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith room, but then it kind of fell off after those 2 guys. Jerry Jeudy was quick more than he was fast. Whereas this, I'm talking about track speed. Like if this was a 4x1, I would take this room over almost any room that Sark has ever had. And these guys are also talented, just catching the ball and being reliable wide receivers. And honestly, all of them are pretty good route runners. If you saw the rep that Isaiah Bond had versus Colorado State, where he has a face mask, was able to fix his helmet mid-route and then still come down with the catch. Yeah, he's a special player, and there's a reason why he's getting mocked in the first round in some drafts.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Amari Novak and Gunnar Helm at the tight end, do you think they'll have much of a say this year besides blocking, or do you think that Sark will use them as well?
No, he'll definitely use them. I think Amari Niblack is more the wide receiver threat. You're going to see him stretch the field because he's an elite athlete. He's more of the wide receiver in the tight end room than anything. Gunnar Helm can do it all pretty well. He's not great at anything. He kind of reminds me of an older Jason Witten. That's what I compare him to, where he's really savvy. He's really smart. He's still a good blocker, and he can sit down in zones, and he has good hands and will make the catches. But yeah, we don't have Jatavian Sanders this year, but I think overall, again, the depth is just better on this team. And even Juan Davis will get some playing time and get some catches. He had some catches in that first game versus Colorado State, and he stepped up in his senior season. So you're going to see all 3. I think Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis are better blockers, but Amari Niblack, if you split them out wide, can definitely make catches and make contested catches versus smaller defensive backs.
Mm-hmm. And do you think this is one of the better offensive lines that Texas has had, even including the Mac Brown years?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the last offensive lineman drafted in the first round was 2005, I believe, which is crazy to say. It's been like 19 years since Texas has a first-round pick at the offensive line position. You're going to see that broken this year. Kevin Banks will be at worst the 10th pick in the draft. I think there's a chance if he has a really good year and the picks fall right, he could end up being the number 1 overall pick. So yes, this is probably the most complete offensive line since 2005, the national championship team. Even that 2009 team, honestly, that was more Colt McCoy carrying a good Texas team to a national championship team than anything. I think this team, depth-wise, speed-wise, and talent-wise, is up there with, they're probably, you could debate with them of last year's team, and then the 2005 team is number 1. So they're either second or third of the last 25 years for Texas teams.
It's just shocking to me as a Commanders fan that Sam Cosmi fell to the second round because he doesn't have much help on that offensive line, but he's been doing his own, holding his own.
Yeah, just got a gigantic contract extension today as well.
Yeah, he's been killing it. And for the defensive line, Barron, Sorrell, and Ethan Burke returned, but how do you think Alfred Collins and Bill Norton, how have they been holding it up?
Yeah, so they've been okay. Bill Norton's more of a nose tackle, so you actually see him more in this Michigan game. They actually used a bare front versus Colorado State, and just in simple terms, it's a heavy front. You have more big, heavy defensive down linemen to stop the run. You're going to see that more versus Michigan. And you saw a couple other packages that I believe were influenced by Johnny Nansen, who came over from Arizona to be our linebackers coach. Who took over for Jeff Choate, who's now at Nevada and killing it there. They've been much better with him as the head coach than they were previously. And I think overall this defense is going to be more complex, but it's also going to be more fundamentally sound. You saw that versus Colorado State, only 3 missed tackles. And overall, I people do bring up missing T'Vondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, and I completely understand why. We had the best run defense in the country last year because of those 2 guys. But do I think we just fell off a cliff and it's going to be like terrible in the inside? No, I do not. I think it's going to be what it was 2 years ago when we had 2 pros in Mora Ojimo and Keandre Coburn, who were both, I believe, 7th. They were either undrafted or 6th and 7th round picks. We have that right now. Alfred Collins, when he comes out, is going to be like a 4th round pick. And then Tia Sevilla, Jermaine Lole, Bill Norton, all those guys will be invited, if not drafted, into the NFL draft. So we have talent still there. And then the edges have gotten better because you bring in Trey Moore at the edge position. Ethan Burke's a year older. Barron Sorrell has transformed his body, become a little bit better. So the edges are going to be better. And overall, I think we've actually upgraded the defense as a whole. Like if you look at the 11 defenders, I think we've gotten better at the 9 other positions. But the 2 positions we haven't are the 2 that we have to replace all world type players. No team's going to be able to do that. Georgia wasn't able to do it when Jordan Davis and those guys left. They weren't able to replace them to that caliber. And Texas wasn't able to do that either. But there's still good players there. And I think we'll probably rank, in my opinion, 25 to 35 in the run. We'll drop off a little bit, but the secondary's gotten much better and the pass rush has gotten much better. So overall, I think this is a better defense.
Do you think Colin Simmons will get much playing time? Maybe not in this game, but as the season goes on?
Yes, for sure. That guy is a freak, and he's been killing it in camp. They actually have a package called the NASCAR package, which is in 3rd and long situations. That's another package they came out with where they bring in like 3 pass rushers with a true interior guy as well, and they try to get to the quarterback as quickly as possible. And they drop Jahdae Barron, who's normally a nickelback or cornerback, at linebacker. I don't think you'll see that with Michigan because that happens on long passing down. So you might see it if we're able to stop the run on 1st and 2nd down. But if we're not able to do that, like let's say it's 2nd and 5, they're not, or 3rd and 5, they're not going to declare that package. That's not going to happen. The only time you'll see that in this Michigan game if it's probably 3rd and 9 plus. And if that's happening, then Texas is probably killing Michigan if that's consistently happening. So I hope to see it a lot, but I don't think we will see it a lot in this game.
And what do you think? What have Andrew Mukuba and Javion Bell? What have they brought to this secondary?
Yeah, so Andrew Mukuba has done pretty well so far. He was one of the guys that we missed 3 tackles. He missed 2 of them, so there was that. But then usually you don't want to hear a safety's name called because they're the last line of defense. And if you're hearing their name called a lot, you're probably getting beat. So overall, I actually thought he had a really solid opening game, but he wasn't the best safety on the field. Michael Taft, who was a walk-on, and has played a couple years here, was the best safety. He was all over the place, making hard hits, delivering hard hits. He's been a really good player. He's always around the ball. And I think Jahdae Barron made a fantastic play. We've transitioned him out to the outside cornerback position instead of nickelback. And he was on the boundary at the cornerback position, and there was no one out there for his assignment. And he made an interception because he read the play and just backtracked it and made like a Willie Mays type interception. So we've also gotten smarter back there as well, and I think more athletic. And you can see it. And that's the whole thing with Steve Sarkisian. He wants smart, long, lengthy athletes. And you see that all over the field now at Texas. It definitely resembles a Steve Sarkisian team. And it's been exciting to watch. And it's going to be exciting to watch unfold because I was not surprised what we did to Colorado State offensively on our side of the ball because Colorado State does not have a good defense. They do have a decent offense. They have a guy in Torrey Horton who's going to play in the NFL, probably be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. They have a guy in Brandon Fowler-Nicolosi who, honestly, if you took Brandon Fowler-Nicolosi and Torrey Horton and put them on Michigan, that is an upgrade at the wide receiver and quarterback position. So they probably won't even see anyone that good this week versus Michigan other than Colston Lovin. Obviously, he's a beast. But overall, more athletic in the back end, and I think will lead to more turnovers and more pass breakups as well.
Do you think what linebacker do you think will match up best against Colston Loveland, or do you think you'll go with like a bigger corner?
If we're going linebacker, and I think the guy just based off of everything I've seen on the defense, it's Anthony Hill. Has to be, the 5-star. He's a sophomore now, but he was a 5-star freshman coming in, flipped over from Texas A&M. The guy played, I love to say this, that the guy played 43% of snaps last year, and he was second on the team in tackles and second on the team in sacks. The guy's a stud. He's the only guy, in my opinion, if you're going to go one-on-one with Colston Loveland, that's the guy you go with, because I actually think he can take Colston Loveland out of the game if you just line him one-on-one. Now, you may not want to do that because Michigan may just put him out wide and use him as a distraction the whole game and then that lightens the box a little bit, and they're able to run a little bit more because he's decent against the run, and it would also take him away from getting to the pass rusher because he's very good at that as well. So I think you're honestly going to see cover 2 situations with Texas, and then they'll use one safety to drop, but then the other safety is just going to come down and bracket Colston Loveland, and they're going to dare Michigan to throw their other wide receivers or weapons. Because here's another stat. Colston Loveland, or when Michigan targeted Colston Loveland, 8 of 9 for 87 yards, 9.88 yards per attempt. That's pretty good. Anyone else, 7 of 16 for 31 yards. That is 1.49 yards per attempt. That is terrible. Mm-hmm. You got to take Colston Loveland out of this game. If you take him out of this game and you can be good versus the run, it's going to be hard.
It's going to get ugly.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Michigan to score.
How do you think Texas will score? How do you think they'll attack this defense?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because I don't know how Steve Sarkisian's going to do this. It's going to be interesting how Wink Martindale does it as well, because I don't know if he's going to decide to blitz, because I will say this, when teams do pressure Quinn Ewers, his completion percentage does drop slightly, and so do his yards per attempt, but his touchdown percentage goes up. So he's hitting people deeper when they do decide to blitz. And what I think Michigan should do, and I don't know if they're going to do this because this goes against Wink Martindale, I think you have a great defensive line. I would only bring 3 or 4 and make Quinn hold on to the ball as much as possible, because every time I've watched Quinn have to think a lot, he tends to hold on to the ball and then runs himself into sacks. He doesn't really turn the ball over, so I won't say that. He won't run himself into a turnover. It'd be more into the sack region. I could see a forced fumble more than an interception, so that's what I would do if I were Michigan. How Sark, I think, is going to attack it is he's going to pass early, but they're going to be very short and quick passes to soften up that Michigan front and try to make them think before they attack the quarterback, and instead they might just start throwing their hands up, and then you stop them from rushing the passer, and then you take your shots. But yeah, he already loves the RPO game, Steve Sarkisian, so you're definitely going to see a lot of that, a lot of RPO and inside zone run, and then quick throws off of that early, and then you're going to see play action and shots deep eventually. He's going to do it. He did it versus Alabama. He's done it versus everyone else, unless Michigan's just fully going to go Iowa State, which I don't think they're going to do, which is a 3-high safety look. Texas is going to have their shots in this game to take because Michigan is a very aggressive defense, and it's going to be interesting, like I said, how Steve Sarkisian attacks. And like I said, early on, I think it's going to be spread them out, quick passes to soften them up a little bit, and then attack them deep and also soften them up so they can run the football as well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at the schedule, and if after this it's pretty much 3. I mean, I'm not going to call Mississippi State a cupcake, but they're not.
they're a cupcake this year.
Yeah, they're a cupcake this year. What do you think about Oklahoma and Georgia back to back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be probably other than Florida, I think that might be the hardest back-to-back stretch of any one season in college football. I think actually Florida's worse than Oklahoma by far, but I think Georgia has Florida and Texas back-to-back as well. So it's going to be interesting there. But yeah, I think I think we can go 2-0. I do, but if you're telling me gun to my head, what do I choose? I think we're 1-1. I think that's just the simple one. But I honestly, if I were ranking the situations, the scenarios, I think it's 1-1, 2-0, 0-2. It's really hard for me to see a world where we go 0-2 in those 2 games.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Oklahoma's better than they are last year? Do you think they've improved overall?
Yes, I do think they're better because I honestly don't think they were very good last year. They went 10-2, but they played a very easy schedule in the Big 12. And I think the schedule's harder this year, so they'll have a worse record, but they are a better football team. I predicted them to go 8-4, 4-4 in the SEC. So I think they're better. I think it'll be interesting how it works out because you basically pushed, and I don't love Dillon Gabriel, but you pushed Dillon Gabriel out the door to bring in Jackson Arnold. If he does not produce like you think he's going to produce, that's going to heat up the seat heat up the seat on Brent Venables, because you pushed out a guy that's a known commodity. He's a nice 7 out of 10 type player at the quarterback position, in my opinion. And you're hoping Jackson Arnold's an 8. And if he's not, then you pushed out a guy that could have gotten you probably this year 8 to 9 wins in the SEC. And if it's disastrous with Jackson Arnold, like we saw in the bowl game, has the tendency he can turn it over, then you could win only 6 games. So that's going to be big for them.
Their defense does look better, though. But
yeah, it's for sure better. My question is the offense better? Because I don't know about the offensive line. It's kind of like Michigan. You're return, or you have 5 new guys breaking in. How good can you be? It's going to be, I mean, week 4 will tell us everything. They play Tennessee. They can obviously get better if they lose that game or win that game, but that's going to be a hard game. Be interesting.
Mm-hmm. For sure. It will be interesting to see how they do. And then the Georgia game, of course, we have a while till then.
But yeah, it's week 7 or 8 for I think it's 8. Yeah.
And then they have to go to Alabama first, so we'll learn a lot about them in that game. So overall, in this game, do you think? I feel like it'll be close, and then Texas will pull away because that defense will eventually tire out for Michigan.
Yeah, so I think Michigan does want to play a keep away game. And when we did our show last night with the Michigan guys on the Voice of College Football, I basically said, I don't know if Alec Orji is the better quarterback, but I think he might be better for this game because Michigan wants to play keep away. So I honestly think, like, my Longhorns fans will understand this reference. Take Sam Ehlinger circa, I think, 2017 freshman season and run that offense. It was basically QB power and then fake play actions and hit them deep. And I think that's what Michigan kind of has to do because I just don't see the abilities to sustain long drives from Michigan. I just don't see that happening. I think they're going to have to hit explosive plays. And if they do that, then they have a chance in this game. If they do not,
I don't know if they have the players to do it, though.
Yeah, but they can scheme. You can always scheme it up. I mean, I've seen Steve Sarkisian's way better than anyone they have calling plays on their side. But you can scheme up stuff to where you can find plays open. And I have a feeling Texas will probably come out and cover 1. And you'll be able, there will be shots there. Now, do you have the confidence with your quarterback and playmakers to take those shots? We'll see. To me, if they don't have the confidence to do that and they don't do that, you're basically playing not to lose, and you will lose. You probably just won't get blown out because you're not trying to actually win the game is what's going to end up happening. Now, that scenario that I said where if you do take shots and it doesn't work, you're probably going to get blown out because you'll just keep going 3 and out, but at least you took the shots to try to actually win the game. It's basically walking a tightrope for Michigan. It's a very slim margin of error, and if they don't do it, there's a really good chance they get blown out. It could be a lot like the Georgia-Clemson game where the Clemson offense was just anemic, and then eventually the dam broke and you got blown out. That could definitely happen in this game, but if Michigan is able to consistently run versus our front, then who knows?
Do you have a final score prediction?
Yes. So I have Texas winning this game 26-20. I think we do enough offensively. I think we're able to stifle them enough defensively. And I just think we're going to play a pretty clean game. I think that's how we win this game. And unless Michigan forces 2+ turnovers, I don't see them winning this game. So for me, Texas, take care of the ball. Make your field goals when you can get them, and Bert Auburn's been great at that so far. And then when in the red zone, because Texas has struggled in the red zone scoring touchdowns, score touchdowns, because I think it's going to be hard for Michigan to score touchdowns. I think they can kick field goals. They have a really good field goal kicker, and I think they're going to be able to move the ball 40, 50 yards maybe at a time. Can they move it 70 to 80 yards and score touchdowns? Probably not. But if you score touchdowns, that makes them play. It will probably make them play a passing game, and they do not want to do that. So I think 26-20 Texas.
All right. Well, you're heard it here, 26-20 Texas. I think that if I had to say a score, I would go. I don't remember what I said on my show with Jeffrey, but I think like maybe 34-20. I don't know. I feel like the dam might break for Texas in this game, but we'll see. It should be a fun night in the big house. Are you making the trip up north, or are you just gonna?
No, I thought about it. So Ohio State plays Texas next year in Columbus, and I'm from Ohio, still live here. So I'm probably going to save up money, and whatever those tickets cost, I will pay him, because guess what? It's going to be Julian Sand versus Arch Manning in the Horseshoe, the first game of the season. So I'd rather go to that game. I will say, though, according to Texas fans and basically every Texas fan I've heard and talked to, Ohio State fans are jerks. They were terrible to Texas the last time they were there. So I will be a little bit scared. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to find as many Texas fans as I can and hook up with them. But the Michigan, what I've heard, Michigan fans seem to be really classy and nice. They at least were to Texas in the Rose Bowl the last time they played. So maybe I should have shut out the money to be more safe, but I'm more excited about the Ohio State game next year. But the tickets are super expensive also to that Michigan game. I know they're going to be expensive in Columbus as well, but I think they're running like cheapest is like $270. The most expensive is like $2,000. So, and I'm not going to, I don't want to disparage anyone, but if I'm going, I want decent seats. I'm not sitting nosebleed. So, but I'm not showing out $600 right now for a ticket.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens this week. Should be a good, fun game with Gus and Joel on the call. And yeah, enjoy the week, everyone.